Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Canadian Football Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans. And Rick is laughing because this is now the third time at attempting the intro and getting it right this time.
It's funny because when you're about to do it, I thought you were going to say something, and then you didn't say anything. I'm like, oh, God, here we go. Here goes the fourth time.
No, exactly. No, I had my wrong mic connected, and then apparently I struggled with the acronym CFL, which was funny. But Rick, what was not funny, at least for us, was that we were hoping for... We were praying on Chad Kelly's downfall, and, well, that just didn't happen.
Ottawa is absolutely dog doo-doo.
Yeah. Man. Well, you know what it is? They couldn't run the ball.
There was people.
There was no running. There was no running the ball, and there was no defense. The defense.
Apparently, I was checking out social media today. There was people calling for... what's his name to step down and uttering death threats to the head coach and asking him to step down, and that he was like completely dog doo-doo.
Although it's funny, as much as we like to kind of, especially you, take a little shit on Tommy Condell.
Yes,
he didn't lose this game. They got 38 points. This is defense. Defense. This game. They gave up 58. 38 points is enough offense to win a football game.
Okay, hold on. I still blame him in a sense because they only had 23 rushing yards.
Now, yes.
That's on the offense.
However, here's the thing. Drew Brown went 46 for 51.
And how does Chad Kelly only throw 20 passes?
I don't even know. Like, think about it. Drew Brown went 90%. He went 90%, and they still lost.
I will say, though,
like,
his 2 interceptions, for the love of God, Drew Brown, what the heck were you thinking? They both were throwing in double coverage.
That's true, but we have to realize the defense had already lost this game by the point that happened. That's true. But and also even taking that into account, he still threw 3 touchdown passes, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Is still in the positives. Like, at the end of the day, there were problems with this offense in Ottawa, but the defense lost this game. Absolutely, 58 points. How can you not?
But the thing is,
let's take 14 points away, the 2 defensive touchdowns with the conversions. Okay, still 44 points, Rick. 44.
I mean, 44 is better than 58.
Yeah, but 44 is not if you give up 44 points in a football game, you lose. And like if you give up 44 points and that is all against the defense because we got rid of the stuff where the offense made errors and that resulted in those 2 touchdowns. 44 points were scored on the Ottawa Redblacks defense. If you can't hold a team under you couldn't hold a team under it's hard to win not being able to hold them under 30. 44. Jesus Christ.
And it's not even that. It's like as soon as Drew Brown threw a touchdown, it's like 2 plays, Chad Kelly's coming off the field with a touchdown.
Exactly. And so Drew Brown goes through all this work because Ottawa was relying on a lot more shorter passes than they were balling it down the field like Chad Kelly was. But it was getting them success. It was getting them results. At the end of the game, at the end of the day, they put up 38 points. They did. And then it didn't matter because it took 10 minutes for them to move the ball all the way down just for Chad Kelly in 3 plays to make it to the end zone and tie the game. And also, but although I think you said it best when we were live streaming. So first of all, we want to thank everyone who came to both live streams, both the East semifinal as well as the West semifinal. Now, we actually are going to be, it's funny, we originally didn't think we'd be able to stream any more of this playoffs. We will be streaming the East final, sort of. I think we haven't quite worked it out whether we're doing it on Canadian Football Central or Ticats Talk Network. I think it might make a little bit more sense here just because we got more of a viewer base here, Rick, but I'm cool with either. But it'll be one where we're kind of both there for a while, and then it'll just kind of be Rick solo for the ending portion of the game, as I will then be traveling to IG Field. I'm not calling it Princess Auto Stadium, to go see the West final between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So, yeah, all that jazz. What were you saying, Rick? You look like you were.
I wasn't saying anything.
Oh, you look like you were about to say something. My apologies. But
no, it's just like, I don't know. I don't think. So here's the thing that I feel about Ottawa is, I can see some of their players leaving, but then at the same time, Ottawa. How do I put this in a polite way? Ottawa's trash to the point where, like, you can go there and find a starting position. It's not like Montreal, Toronto, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, Hamilton, where you gotta fight for positions. Like, you can go to Ottawa and become a starter right off the hop.
Player. Yeah, I think that's more true for the defense than it is the offense. I think the offense has actually done pretty well to the point where I think they've started to solidify some of their guys. Not all of them. I think particularly at that running back position, ever since Raquel Armstead was kind of booted off the team and now is over in Saskatchewan.
I think that's came back and bit them because Jamal Morrow didn't play any games.
Yeah, although I will say, as much as it may have bit them in terms of that, I respect the fact. So, Raquel Armstead, he had gotten cut from the team based off of his behavior, and I think he'd gotten
I get
out
that.
of 2 straight games. So, at the end of the day, as much as it may seem like Ottawa made the wrong decision, I think it's good. I think I'll put it this way: if I was the Ottawa Redblacks, I would have done the same thing, even with.
But at the same time, you don't have anyone.
Well, that's more the issue. The issue was not that they got rid of Raquel Armstead. I think it was one of those things where they kind of had to do that, as you have to enforce, standards morally in that sense, and what is acceptable. However, when you do that, once you do that, it's then your job in management to say, we have a hole in the roster. Let's go fill that hole. Especially when you looked at a team like Hamilton, who, no offense, wasn't in the playoffs, and they had guys. They had James Butler, they had Bell, and it's one of those things where the Ticats, they'll probably lose Butler for essentially nothing. He'll probably sign somewhere else. But the Ottawa Redblacks could have got, like, they would have had to pay something in order to get him, but it would have solved their problem. And so, and the Ticats would have gotten a little something out of it. So,
here's another thing. Or they could have just went and signed Kevin Brown, who was released by Edmonton.
That's the other thing. But the point is that when they had that hole open in the roster, they didn't do enough to actually fill those shoes. That was kind of the main point. I was giving one example of how they could have done that.
I will say this. And this individual corrected me on the pronunciation. McKay Polk is going to get a signing bonus, a huge signing bonus in the offseason because the way that he's came off.
Oh, absolutely.
That guy, it would not surprise me if he's the second highest paid receiver behind Devarius Daniels come next season.
On Toronto. Toronto, yeah, not in the league, but on Toronto, yes. No, I think so too. And to be honest, I think it's well deserved. I think he's shown up, and more importantly, he's started to show up when it really matters. When Toronto needed to kind of solidify their spot in the playoffs and ideally look for a home game, even though they won't fill the building, they got to get there, and then once they're in the playoffs, they got to perform. And you know what? As much as we love making jokes about Toronto last year, this year Chad Kelly 18 for 20, so did very very well in that regard. I think that's actually 90% for him as well. And so yeah, 90% for Chad Kelly as well. 358 passing yards, 17.9 yards on average. This is where you can really see that there wasn't a ton of throws. Only 18 completions, 358 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Completely turned it around from last year when he was 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And so,
I mean, keep in mind, one of those passes was to Polk.
Yeah.
For that 70-yard bomb.
Yeah, and Tavares Daniels, I mean, for the longest point of the game, he only had two catches, and they were both touchdowns. And then he, started getting the ball a little bit more, and he would end up with 88 yards, 2 touchdowns on 4 receptions. Polk, 4 receptions, only 4, 158, 1 touchdown. It's kind of crazy to think that the entire game, as much as you were hearing him and you were seeing him get these wonderful catches, he only got 4 catches. That's it. He really didn't get that many catches because he really didn't need to. Like, for context, again, this is where you can start to see where I was saying where the Red Blacks were moving it inch by inch by inch through the passing game. Brown, 46 on 51. Some Jake Mayer kind of shit. Seriously. Except Jake Mayer wouldn't have went 90%. That's the only difference. But then if we look at even like Pimpleton gets 123 yards receiving. Very good. On 13 receptions. So he gets less on 13 receptions than Polk does on 4. And so this is not necessarily a fault of Pimpleton or a fault of Drew Brown, but really just showing how the deep ball Ottawa couldn't defend against. They couldn't defend against the deep ball. It killed them all game.
Also, I want to bring up
that
Roman Reigns spear that Ottawa gave Toronto.
Yeah, no, seriously, that was crazy. It's funny. The second everyone saw it, it was just kind of, oh damn. And then Rick's like, holy crap, look at that Roman Reigns spear. I said the only thing that would have made it more Roman Reigns is if he right before he was about to go into his 4-point stance at the defensive line just went, just did the full get up. And no, but it's crazy because if you think about it. So Toronto has a little bit of a weaker first quarter. They give up 10, they get 3. Ottawa does well in the second quarter, gets 13 points. Toronto gets 17. It all turns around in the second half of this game, where Ottawa gets 3 in the third quarter, Toronto gets 14, and then an absolute catastrophe from the Red Blacks when they really needed to perform the most. 12 points for the Red Blacks in the fourth quarter, and 24 for the Argos. Again, even though the offense was able to kind of kick it up, at least to put 12 points on the board, they couldn't defend for nothing. Now, again, to be fair, 14 of those in the fourth quarter were the offense against themselves. That is important to keep in mind. But again, at this point, this game was long gone. However, I think you said it best on stream, Rick, which is the turning point of this game was, what's with the squibble kick?
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing?
That was the other thing. Why would you go do that 2 minutes left?
They just handed a
10
field goal to the Toronto Argonauts. Lyram Haralahu, with 3 seconds left, hits a 53-yard field goal because Ottawa doesn't know how to kick it friggin' 30 yards. Seriously, what are they doing? It was just mind-numbingly stupid. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Because, it was just, there was no need. There was no need. I'm not going to lie. The idea of doing a kind of spur-of-the-moment squibble kick to see if you can get a little bit of momentum, this is not, well, there are times and places for that. This was not that. Because why do you need momentum with 3 seconds left in the quarter? Because you're going to lose it all by halftime. Halftime's 3 seconds away. I just don't get it.
You want to hear something interesting?
Yes.
So, between TSN CTV on Saturday, there was 867,200 viewers that just watched the East final or the East semifinal.
Yeah.
There is about 10,000 less fans with 858,400 that watched the BC Saskatchewan game.
Yeah. Honestly, that kind of almost seemed like our stream. I think our first stream did a lot better in viewership, but it is what it is. Actually, no. Funny enough, it looks like the numbers are actually the opposite. It kind of felt like that in the
So
live chat, but whatever.
those games, the only time that those games were beaten
Yeah.
in 21, the Calgary and Saskatchewan game was 1.6 million or 0.6 million, and 19 where it was 1.1 Calgary at or Winnipeg at Calgary, and then 18 Winnipeg at Saskatchewan. But other than that, no team's ratings have been as high as this year within the last few years. So at least
It's
there's
good to
that.
see. Yeah. And I'm sure this next week will do good with Toronto, Montreal, and then I think Winnipeg, Saskatchewan is gonna do real well in those ratings. But we'll get to
especially with
that.
RDS too.
So yeah, and so we've talked a lot about kind of the Argos. They're not the Argos. The Red Blacks' failings in this game. So
Yes.
talking about the Argos' successes, where obviously Polk stand-up performance, Chad Kelly was fantastic for them, and even on 2 occasions went for a rush, got 29 yards combined. As again, he can run. I will say he goes for that slide a little late, and so he gets roughed up a few times when he does that. But it is what it is. And then defensively, not perfect, but they were able to get McManus and Franklin both with interceptions, and then a sack for Smith and Williams. I think all in all, like actually one last thing I want to say is a positive for the Ottawa Red Blacks. That offensive line did everything they could. Seriously, that offensive line for Ottawa did absolutely everything they could. They gave up 2 sacks, only 2, to Toronto, which is arguably the most formidable defensive line currently in the CFL. They gave up only 2, and the entirety of that game on 51 attempts, they really gave Drew Brown a lot of time. I was very impressed with the Ottawa Red Blacks offensive line, and not enough praise is being given to them. And I think if you're Ottawa, I think you look to keep those guys around and build off of that going into future seasons. Rick?
So, one last thing that I will leave on is I never knew that Andre Pruitt fiasco that happens would have blown up so much on social media.
Oh, I knew it was. Well, Rick, I said this on stream. Do you remember this? When he goes over and he shakes Chad Kelly's hand and they're laughing.
And fist bumps him and Arbuckle?
Well, yeah, and I'm on stream. Do you remember this, Rick? Where I'm like, Rick,
I remember you saying something about it.
Yeah. Well, I said, Rick, if the Argos win this game, and with kind of all the bad publicity with Chad Kelly and all this and that, that clip's going to be everywhere. The one of him shaking the ref's hands, I'm sure all the meme pages are going to be all over it. Because it's like, oh,
that's the first thing I saw yesterday and this morning.
Yep. Well, it's funny because when I saw that, I honestly wondered if if there would be like, especially if there was a really bad call that like went to the command center regarding like pass interference, because Andre Pruitt's notorious for making a bad pass interference call.
I mean, there was a couple.
If it went against the Red Blacks in that regard, everyone would play that clip with Andre Pruitt giving the call, and then afterwards the clip of Chad Kelly and the refs just having a giggle.
I mean,
man, it was something.
Could you imagine that goal line stance if Crum didn't get in?
Oh my goodness!
And then they played that.
Yeah, no. Some people were complaining. Oh, he was totally in. I'm not gonna lie. Before they went to the command center, I'm like, Rick, he's in. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but like, he's got the ball right parallel with his shoulders, and both shoulders are in the end zone. Because the side cam, you can see where the ball is compared to his body, and you see that he's holding it. Tip of the ball is about right here, and then because all it has to do is cross the plane of the end zone a little bit. It doesn't need to have the entire ball in. Second, a bit of that's in, bang, he's good. Same way. where like in the NHL, in order to not be offside, you have to have a foot touching the line. Doesn't need to be fully across the line, this and that. It's got to be touching, not which is not the same as, say, the puck crossing the line in the NHL. That's where it's a little bit different. But no, with this, it was a situation where like the above cam clearly, in my opinion, showed his shoulders, and because we knew where that ball was, I think the decision was obvious. And I think that for all the times they get the wrong call, I think they got the right call this time. So, anything else you got to add, Rick?
Not for me.
It's funny. We're only at the 20-minute mark on this video, and it's probably not going to be too much longer. But I think it's because we can do endless speculating in terms of for our previews. But for our reviews, we just kind of got to recap what we actually saw. And I think this is like Toronto got hot at the right time. So they'll have to see if they're able to kind of hold this into next game. We will
I don't know.
doing full previews
think...
of both the East and West final. We might actually have a special guest on for the West one, possibly, depending on the schedule. But we'll have those out later this week, so make sure to stay tuned for that.
I was going to say, I think there's going to be changes in Ottawa's offense because I don't think Addison, Hardy, Ackland, Rhymes, and Marner, like some of them will be back, but I don't think all of them will be back.
Most likely not, yep.
But I don't know. Fabriceum's not that far away, my friend.
Yeah, I think realistically, if you're Ottawa and we're looking at, say, whoever played this game, I think keeping Braylon Addison, Pimpleton, and Hardy, I think is the and like Edmund is priority.
I mean, Marner's on a 3-year contract, so he'll be back.
Who? Oh, Marner.
Nick Marner, the 6'7" giant that they drafted this year.
Yep. No, but I think Pimpleton, Addison, and especially Hardy have kind of been a staple of the Red Blacks specifically, whereas opposed to Jalen Ackland kind of made his name in Hamilton and just really hasn't taken off in Ottawa. And then Dominic Rhymes made his name in BC and then just hasn't had the same level of success. I think the guys that are kind of almost homegrown talent, more so, or at least closer to that, you want to kind of keep them around, because I think when you foster that in, it allows you to keep guys really get them cemented in the city, and it allows them to then roll with that. I think that's where the Bombers have done really, really well. They've drafted some guys that are playing there. They move their families there, this and that, and they really get ingrained in Winnipeg, and they then just have more of an incentive to stay. And so I think if you're the Red Blacks, you want
So Rhymes will be back because he signed a 2-year contract.
Okay.
Ackland did not. Ackland only signed a 1 year.
So that's a maybe. Yeah.
Could you imagine Ackland ended up in Edmonton?
I can see that. With their carousel full of receivers.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible. Who knows? Maybe that's one of the guys. Maybe he ends up in like Calgary. You know what I mean? Once Calgary figures out who the hell they want as their quarterback, and then Dave Dickinson's like, hey, see, we got, maybe they have Vernon Adams Jr. Wouldn't that be crazy? Hey, Vernon Adams Jr. is a stampeder. Maybe that's what it is. That'd make for a fun Calgary BC game.
He's either gonna go to Edmonton, Calgary, or if Bo does not come back next year because he's still on the fence if he's coming back, then Hamilton.
Yeah.
Because Bo may just say, like, listen, like, I'm what, 35 now, 36? Like, I went out on a bang.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, it all depends on
your definition of a bang.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if he thinks he still has it,
I get that impression.
Then
I think he'll probably stick around a little bit longer, but it is what it is. Is there anything else we're missing from this game other than obviously Toronto will be advancing now to the East Final to face the Montreal Alouettes? That will be happening in Montreal on
against the Horns.
Yeah, against the Horns. Well, let's be honest. The real enemies of the Horns aren't the Argos. It's the people watching on television. That's the real enemies of the Horns. Um, is all the wonderful people like you at home and me that are gonna actually watch this crap and listen to that. Oh my gosh! Honestly, ratings might go up if they drop those things.
I mean, if only we could turn on captions. We could see what they're saying, but not listen to it.
Yeah, or just I don't know, maybe some sort of noise canceling something.
True.
But yeah, that'll be happening at the Eastern Final will be at 2 p.m. This Saturday. We will most likely be streaming that in some aspect, whether that's on Canadian Football Central or Ticats Talk. I think probably Canadian Football Central. And then, yeah, that'll be running the whole game. I won't be there for the whole game. Rick will, though, as I'll be at the West Final, and then I'll have a video up on the Bombers' either amazing triumph over their arch rivals or depressing defeat this Saturday, as that game is at 5:30. So make sure you guys check out our Western semi-final review, which will be coming out later the same day that this video comes out. And then later down the week, the East Final and West Final previews will be coming out in advance of the East and West Final. So make sure you guys tune into that. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you have not already. And hit that little notification bell. Helps out the channel a ton. If you guys are listening to this on Spotify, I know I've said it a million times in a million videos, but give us 5 stars. It helps us out a ton and allows us to really promote our content and get it to a bunch of more, well, get it to more wonderful listeners like yourself. So thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Peace, love, and positivity to all you wonderful people at home. I know Rick probably wants to do his Ash Ketchum thing. Isn't that right? Get the peace sign out there. But until next time, guys.